Hi there. So, for those of you with long memories, I imagine you know what this is. This is the National Rums of Jamaica Longpond 2003 Tech A. And it's aged 15 years in Jamaica, tropical weather. It's got the moniker of continental flavor, which we'll get into it. And it was distilled on a double retort pot still. This may be one of the most divisive rums of its kind ever made. And I say that with love. I really do. Because here's the thing. It was issued by Velier in, what year was it issued in? 2018, 2019, somewhere about then. And it still probably holds the record as having the most incredible tasting notes of any rum that any of us have ever tried. When I say it's divisive, what I mean is that newcomers and people who are not used to this kind of funky, rotten garbage kind of vibe to it are gonna just absolutely hate it. But for those who like Jamaicans, or those who like funk, or those who appreciate what Velier was trying to do, because to my mind, this was one of the educational bottles that they released every now and then, which I call the one-offs, to kind of like let us know what this is like. They're going to just go apeshit over it. So it's not entirely approachable for the new person. It may actually be too expensive right now. I think, if I recall correctly, it was 9 barrels and about 2,500 bottles that came out, right? And this is a heel that I got from my Danish friends, Henrik and Gregors, who gave me all 4 of the initial set all at once many years ago. And I wanted to do a video of it to accompany the review that was out there, because I think this is one of these interesting rums that occasionally we just do have to try, whether or not it smells like a wet dog. All right? Okay, so let's go straight into it, and then I'll give you a lot of backstory afterwards, which you can then ignore. There isn't much left of it, but I have sealed this and really tried to keep it well stored. So I think most of what it had back in the day continues to be here. Oh, all right. I forget the strength. 63%. Yeah, I seem to be on a really heavy rum kick these last few reviews. But anyway, I still remember what it was like that first time, and nothing has changed. I mean, my friend Gregor has kind of smirked at me, and he said, it's a pungent fucker, isn't it? And I sent him a text, and after I took my glottis off the floor, and the rum kind of stomped it flat. And to be honest, I got a note from a friend of mine called Mr. Kurt after the Vale Royale review. That was one of the 4 that I did at the same time, and he says, he really can't wait to see my thoughts on the TECA. And it's hard to describe, he told me, without sounding gross, and that's exactly right. And one of the reasons I start with that comment right after smelling it for the first time is that this is the sort of rum that you hold in your trembling hands, surveying the reeking fields of the zombie apocalypse. I'm a fairly fit old fart of some mental fortitude, and I've tasted rums for many years, up and down the quality ladder, but this thing leaves me, even now, a little bit shell-shocked and shaking. And somewhere out there, I can just see Luca just kind of like sniggering and, doing a fist pump. And partly that's because of this huge ester count that this thing has, 1,200 grams per hectoliter of pure alcohol. Keeping in mind, of course, that 1,600 is the maximum legal limit, after which I guess we could say we could enter easily weaponizable territory, right? Obviously, there are names for these things, and I'll get into that at the bottom with the notes. I just call it shattering, because in sampling this thing, I'm not kidding when I say that this is the most rancid, hogo-laden ester bomb I had experienced up to that time. I think I reviewed this around 2018, 2019. It was very pungent, extraordinarily so. And it has that kind of rancid hogoness that reminds me of the Japanese Seven Seas rums, which I didn't like, but perhaps I should go back to it now. So some of the off-the-wall aromas of the companion bottle of the Cambridge are here, but except that they were so very torqued up. So it smells like a tannery that's gone a little bit crazy, a hair salon dumping every single chemical on the floor at once, a massive blurt of sulfur, methane, rubber, plastic dissolving in a bubbling pool of ammonia, and it's like hemp rope. I worked on a sailing ship once, and with places that had hemp rope, so I know what it smells like. But it also is joined by something just a little bit rancid. Rotting meat, microwaved fish, 3-day-old roadkill marinating on a hot day next to the asphalt machine. I'm trying to be poetic here, but I swear to God, this is what it really is. There's a scent of strong soy-flavored vegetable soup and spoiling chicken tikka, raw onions, a little bit of sweat, and then there's that intensity of clear, crisp, sharp, fruity ester background notes to it. It's cold, it's clear, it's precise. Pineapples, gooseberries, there's a bit of sour here, guineps, unripe Thai green mangoes, salmiak, green apples. And, I swear to God, I know this sounds like a lot, but the rum's nose goes so far into uncharted territory that I really have spent a long time, yet again, on it. And it's bloody hell. It's a lot. It's so much. And when they talk about hogo in this thing, they can call it whatever they want, hogu or whatever, rancio done. But for my money, this is just like, oh God, it really is like that. So you'd think that's bad for a nose. And I haven't gotten to the taste yet, and you'd think so. But just hoist up your codpiece and taste the damn thing. Initially, I wrote WTF. You're like, what the is this? Because it just dumbfounded me. Like, where did all this crazy ass crap that we started on the nose, where did that all go? It tastes so much better when you actually sip the damn thing. So, this is about the fourth time I'm trying this today just to get my notes down pat. It's got soda pop, Coke, Fanta, persimmons, passion fruits, red currants. Very sharp, very hot, very spicy, but at the same time, you don't feel any kind of edge or roughness here, which is really quite important. It's got salt, brine, olives, plastic, rubber, vanilla, licorice, all rubbing shoulders and made really pleasant by a lessening of the rancio and that rotten meat thing. So it's incredibly intense. It's incredibly tasty. There's just so much stuff going on with the fruits and the mangoes and the gooseberries and the unsweetened yogurt and the sour cream and so on. The real weird thing is how far the nose and the palate actually diverge, and I mean, the vegetable soup kind of goes across both. The fruits are there in both of them. And yes, of course, there's those esters and congeners and so on that you can't do it. But even the finish is really kind of quietly amazing. Pistachios, vanilla, anise, soy, olives, an orchard of rotting fruits and banana skins, hot weather, garbage, that kind of thing. I have to emphasize that this is not necessarily a bad thing. But on the other hand, it is so far off the scale of what we're used to, even with some of the modern Jamaicans. And I've got the Plantaray Hogo monster floating around here somewhere, which is just like off the scale. And of course, there was that Habitation Velier I referred to the other day that had like 3,000 grams per liter of congeners. Stuff like that just really is there for the mad people, the ones who want to get the most of everything. So it's something of an ode to excess of any kind. And given this profile that I described, I think it took real courage for Velier to release the thing, because he must have known that this would be extraordinarily divisive and people would either love it or hate it. I don't think there's a middle ground on this one. But of course, I have mentioned before that the man is something of an educator and he likes to push us in directions that we have not yet gone in. Look at something new, look what comes out of existing distilleries, take a gander, treat it fairly, see what you come out of it. And you know what? With the Vale Royale and the Cambridge and the Tech C, it's good to have all four at the same time. There are others that have been released since then, but these are the four originals. And, this one is definitely the one that stands out in most people's mind, whether it's, sweaty wet dog or other smells and tastes and so on is kind of, well, I don't know. I can't entirely say that it's my cup of tea. I think this is just a little bit too much. And I think in this case, this is a victory of enthusiasm over true and real quality. As an educational tool, I can't fault it. It is what it is, and it does show something of what this kind of ester count in an aged 15-year-old Jamaican rum is like. And of course, Longpond does have its adherents just like Clarendon or Monmouth or Worthy Parker or Hampton does, right? The pot still certainly makes a statement for itself. The strength is absolutely incredible. But at the time when I wrote my initial review, I scored this 79 points. The others scored higher. This one was the least of the lot. But I often mention things like character, and I do believe this has oodles of it. You won't forget it. I mean, I have never forgotten it. And I reference it constantly more than I do the other three, which I actually like better, largely because of that strangeness of its profile. If you can get it to this day, I think you would. There are other Tech A's out there, right? And I think I'm going to stay at around 80, 81 points for this in a revisit, which I'm doing now for the video review. But the original 79 has to stand because that's exactly what I thought at that time. And this is where I'm going to stop the tasting notes and my commentary, and I'm going to go on background notes. So if there's nothing else that you want to know, you can just stop here. Okay, so like I said, this is one of 4 bottles, distilled in 2003, and it has the 9 barrels and 2,484 bottles. It is 1,200 to 1,300 ester level. So they're all rums from the Longpond distillery and represent distillates of varying levels of ester counts. So the cocktail wonk is a really good resource to look at with respect to the Jamaican ester profiles. And there are others like Flo Redbeard of Barrel Aged Thoughts, who wrote about this in, I think it was October of 2018. You can look at his reference. I'll reference his essay in the show notes and so on. The ester marks with the letters and everything else are definitions, and they are related to Jamaica. Others don't use them, and they tend to be used now as marketing tools, even though, of course, I suspect that they're completely correct and, they state what they are. But people start buying Hamptons in particular, and to some extent Worthy Parks and others, based upon those ester counts. I tend to be a kind of like a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. Right. But the important thing to understand, though, is that back in the day, the British classified Jamaican rums into 4 major styles. And many estates took this a few steps further by dividing the major categories even more. So the standard classification was the common clean, the plumber, the Wedderburn, the continental flavor, with ever increasing ester counts, continental flavored being the highest, 700 to 1600. Who came up with this naming nomenclature or what those names mean is something of a historian's dilemma, although I'm sure somebody knows something about it and I just haven't done my research well enough. Longpond itself sliced and diced this within even more subdivisions. I guess they felt that 4 or 5 just wasn't good enough. So they had the RV with 0 to 20, the CQV with 20 to 50, the LRM 50 to 90, the ITP/LSO with 90 to 120 grams per liter of congeners, then HJC LIB with 120 to 150, IRW, VRW, which I think was 150 to 250. Then there was, I swear to God, there's more. HHH/OCLP, 250 to 400, LPS, 400 to 550. And then we have the STC Heart Eve, which is 550 to 700. We are at the midpoint here, more or less. The Tech A, which is 1,200 to 1,300. There seems to be nothing between 701 and 1,200, which I always thought was odd. And then there was the Tech B, 1,300 to 1,400, right? And then there was a Tech C with 1,500 to 1,600. So, clearly they wanted to have lots and lots of stuff there, right? The estate name is another thing. It's unclear whether the Tech A stands for Tilson Estate, one of the estates that got subsumed into Longpond in the wave of consolidations in the 1940s and the 1950s. And this is actually a theory that Luca subscribes to himself. Or whether it's Trelawney Estates, the umbrella company created in the 1950s before being taken over by the government and then renamed the National Rums of Jamaica. And this is where some additional research is needed. I don't have my book of Modern Caribbean Rum with me that Matt Petrick had wrote. He's probably going to be the guy who's got it in there. I did not read that section, and I can't obviously do it right now. The continental type A or B or C simply refers to ever increasing ester levels. And the various histories of Longpond that were written online that are available by Barrel Aged Thoughts, Cocktail Wonka, Du Rum, they do provide useful background reading if you want to know that. And I'm not entirely sure they settle the marks issue one way or the other. Now, one last point I want to make before I close this all off is that the National Rums of Jamaica is not an estate and a distillery in and of itself, but it's an umbrella company that is owned by 3 organizations, each of which has an equal share. There's the Jamaican government itself, there's Maison Ferrand de France, Plantaret, who got their stake in 2017 as part of their purchase of Word in 2017. And the original holder, sorry, not the original holder, the last third is owned by, strangely enough, a Guyanese company, DDL. How that is going to go into the future now that Jamaican rums are beginning to have this incredibly great worldwide reputation, whether it's Worthy Park or Hampton or the individual the individual distilleries like Clarendon and Monymusk and so on, with Appleton leading the charge in the mass market, of course, is anybody's guess. But to get back to this one rum, I think this is really quite an incredible piece of work. I may not like it all that much, but I unhesitatingly appreciate the fact that it has real tasting chops, real character, and it sheds a light into the way rums were made at some point, which they're trying to recreate, I'm sure, so that we can get more of the same kind of thing for those people who like their numbers jacked up to the max. The fact that I don't particularly care for it as much as others do, I will unhesitatingly say that it is definitely one of the most unique and original rums of its kind ever made. And I think that 81, 82 points for the video review is probably just about right, but there are going to be people who like it more, and there are going to be a lot of people who like it a lot of it less. My only advice is for newbies and tyros and people who are now getting into the Jamaican rum game, go easy with it. I'm not saying don't buy it, just go easy with it. You've been warned, you've been told, this is what it is. Don't be surprised if you have to pick your glottis off the floor when you're done. But as a rum that I will never forget my first encounter with, it's one of a kind. It really, really is. That's it for today. And I know this is a bit long, but take care of yourselves, everybody. I hope you manage to have a good Jamaican or Guyanese or Japanese or Australian or other rum in the future. And I will see you all again later. Take care. Bye.